What is up? Welcome to the episode. Today we are going to be chatting about what I learned via not drinking for 6 months because I decided to participate in Sober September. You probably listened to episode number 158 outlining 10 things that I learned via that experience. And it felt so good that I just chose to keep things rolling. And 6 months later, here we are and I'm still at it. I'm going to break this episode down into 4 sections, which are physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. I'm also going to share a few aha moments or key insights that I've come to. Now, truth be told, the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual sections or aspects that I'm going to be covering are not separate things. They are all inextricably linked. But for the sake of structure and clarity, that's how I'm going to lay it out. It's actually much like organ systems. We have endocrinologists who focus on hormones. We have gastroenterologists who zoom in on digestion. Nephrologists dig into kidney health, and you get the idea. Our medical system is funky that way in the sense that it would be like taking your car to one shop if there was an engine problem, and then a completely different shop if you had an issue with the battery. It's kind of silly, right? This is not actually how the body works at all. And that's why I take a quote unquote holistic approach with my clients, because the body functions as one unit. For example, if someone is overweight, it will impair their hormonal status. It will also cause additional stress on their digestive system as well as their kidney health. And this is why we see so many diabetics on kidney dialysis. So point being, everything is everything, but I digress. I'm also going to touch on just my overall personal experience and how I practically went about skipping booze for half a year, because just the thought of going without alcohol for a week, let alone 6 months, can be really daunting for some folks. And I would have absolutely put myself in that category prior to this experience. Giving up booze is definitely something that had been on my mind for quite a while, years actually, but I clearly just wasn't ready to pull the trigger until I did. If I had to pinpoint a specific moment that the ball started really rolling in the direction of, hey Marcus, maybe consuming alcohol isn't a net benefit to you anymore, it was about 2 years ago. And I went to a birthday party just outside of Playa del Carmen on the way to Tulum. It was super cool. The host had rented a beautiful Airbnb in the middle of the jungle with the biggest pool I had ever seen. It was incredible. We got there around 2 p.m. and we started boozing, and I was under the impression that there was going to be food available. But essentially, it was just like some chips and salsa. And so, long story short, I was crushing drinks and no food, and I got wasted. I don't remember everything that happened that night. It was super patchy. But what I do remember is that when we were driving back to Playa, I started feeling super ill on the highway. It was about a 20-minute drive, and I opened the door while we were moving and puked. And I know that I made a mess in my friend's car. And the following day, I was so embarrassed and just like, dude, what the fuck? Why did you let it get to that point? So I messaged my friend frantically. I apologized profusely, and I insisted that I paid to get her car cleaned professionally. And she was like, it's all good. It's already done. And I was like, oh my God, I'm 33 years old and I just threw up half on the highway and half in my friend's car. A humble moment to say the least. And that next day, I was so humiliated, hungover, anxious, depressed, all the fun feelings. And from that point, I started to take a very serious look at my relationship with alcohol. It's always something that's been sort of running in the background, but this was a wake-up call for sure. Now, I definitely didn't get that drunk on a regular basis, but I was aware that the way that I interacted with booze tended to be a bit of an on or off switch, meaning once I decided that I was drinking, I'd be having such a blast that I'd just keep ordering one after another. And it would often get to a point where if I'd had, say, 3 or 4 bevies, I would start thinking about my next drink before I'd even finish the one in my hand. So the highway car experience was super eye-opening, but I actually didn't stop at that point. I was just becoming hyper aware of the role that alcohol played in my life and how I interacted with it. And fast forward to this past summer, and I was dating this gal in Vancouver, and she liked her booze, and I noticed that I was starting to slip into the habit of having one big night per week with her and feeling like shit for 2 days after. And by no means am I blaming her in the slightest. She's a sweet person, we're still in contact and on great terms, and I'm an adult that makes my own decisions. But I just wanted to be honest with myself about whether dating someone with a lifestyle like that fit for me and what I want in my life moving forward. If I was 25, it would likely be a different story, but I'm 35. So late August, early September, me and the boys always have our fantasy football draft, and we had decided that we were going to do a cool little wine tasting for it. And so I told myself, this is going to be the last drink that I have for at least a month. And I was leaving for Mexico on a one-way ticket 4 days later, and so I figured it would be a perfect time to be sober for a bit. I was feeling so great after 30 days that I just kept it rolling. And so that's the Coles Notes version of how I got to this point in time. Now let's dig into what I noticed from a physical standpoint in regards to going sans alcohol for 6 months first, and then we'll get into the mental, emotional, and spiritual buckets, as well as the ahas. Physically, I found it even easier to stay lean. Shocker, right? Which makes complete sense because alcohol not only has a bunch of calories in it, it also tends to be paired up with calorie-dense, funky foods. And let's be honest, hangovers don't lead to the best food decisions or movement habits. I noticed that my digestion was also better, my recovery improved, so I started recovering from exercise much more quickly. My sex drive bunched up, and I didn't have any issues with it before, but it definitely got even better. And without a doubt, the biggest physical benefit that I saw was via improved sleep. Alcohol is amazing at impairing sleep. And so super quickly, I found that I actually needed fewer total hours over the course of the week because I was sleeping so well every night as opposed to, say, 5 or 6 nights per week. As far as the mental realm goes, my productivity went through the roof. I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, but I'm a one-man band. I don't have an assistant. I do absolutely everything that you see on my own. So that means coaching clients, social media, the podcast front to back, including, editing, uploading, the channel art, the YouTube channel front to back, maintaining and updating the website, all of it. And the only way that I can do all of this without feeling overwhelmed and still have a social life is by being incredibly productive. I most likely could be even more productive if I hired some folks, but I actually really enjoy doing everything that I'm doing right now. And so that might be something that I look into down the road, but it's pretty cool to know that I have the ability to be self-reliant to a degree in regards to my business that way. I also just really like learning how to do different things, i.e. editing a YouTube video, for example. I know how to do that now. I also noticed that my comfort level in social situations increased because alcohol was watering down any sort of potential social awkwardness that was kicking around, and eliminating booze provided me with the opportunity to sort that out, which has been super cool. Now, this is quite rare just because typically we tend to use alcohol as a social lubricant, and so it's weaved into the culture in a way that the only real opportunity that you'd give yourself to address this angst in terms of social interaction goes would be most likely by eliminating alcohol. It's one of those things that's uncomfortable at first, but wildly beneficial as an investment down the road. This is one of the reasons why people keep drinking, by the way. The feelings that come up, especially in social situations, that the individual doesn't want to feel, and therefore an alcohol habit can stay in place simply as a band-aid for an underlying social issue. The next benefit ties into the productivity piece. I noticed that my procrastination decreased drastically. For example, there was far less time between thinking about doing a task that I wanted to do and actually doing it. So that gap closed dramatically. And procrastination, or putting tasks off, just isn't nearly as much of a thing that I deal with now, which is amazing because not only can I get more done, I don't have that looming procrastination feeling weighing me down, which we're all well aware of sucks. And yet we still do it. It's interesting, but that was cool. Emotional perks, man. Skipping booze has been, I was going to say game changer. Game changer is an understatement. It has been life changing. I really got to see how I was choosing feelings of angst and depression via my actions and habits. I've put a whole podcast episode together on the Sunday scaries, and this, for the most part, for most folks, is alcohol and drug induced. There is nothing scary about Sunday as a day of the week, right? I love Sundays, unless I drank too much and slept like shit as a result. So emotional stability has been incredible, and I find it helpful to think about this in terms of blood sugar. We've all experienced low blood sugar as a result of funky eating habits, and alcohol is no different in the sense that we consume it, we feel great initially, and then we get this compensatory effect and feel terrible via the come down. Same sort of concept. I also noticed that my emotional clarity ticked up a ton because I essentially got out of my own way via not creating further feelings of angst and depression via a drug that I was consuming on a regular basis. And this leads perfectly into the quote unquote spiritual realizations. By no longer creating additional issues via alcohol-induced depression and angst, I was able to acknowledge and address issues that I've had my whole life. It's like your email inbox. If you're struggling to keep up with your current email load, there's no way in hell that you're going to get to those old emails that have been backing up for the last year, let's say. By staying on top of my daily emails, I've been able to chip away at my old ones and work towards inbox zero. And ironically, the issues that kept me drinking in the first place were those old emails. It's an interesting question to ponder, really. Like, why do I drink? Might be a cool one to explore. And it's worth noting that what you might notice is that if you choose to stop drinking, it almost seems like it creates issues for yourself, i.e., you start feeling a whole bunch of old stuff. And it's not because stopping alcohol created new issues. It's because alcohol was watering down all of those issues to begin with that have been there the whole time. This is one of the reasons why folks are scared to go to therapy, actually. They inherently know that there is shit there that they'd benefit from dealing with, but it's an ignorance is bliss to a degree sort of situation. And I can say from personal experience, as someone who's seen a therapist for, I'll say this, consistently twice per month for over a decade, it is worth it in my opinion. Okay, let's get to the aha moments or insights that I want to share with you. The first one is I noticed that I had to get better about scheduling time off of work when I stopped drinking. And the reason is feeling less than stellar the day after a boozy night out resulted in me giving myself permission to have a quote unquote lazy day. And without alcohol in the mix, I noticed that I would just work for hours and hours every single day. And so I needed to give myself permission to recharge without the need for a hangover. Fascinating, right? Like this was almost certainly one of the reasons or payoffs of why I drank. Permission to take a break. How interesting and nuanced is that? But this was something that I didn't know about myself until I walked the walk via skipping booze. So cool. I also noticed that I was having less sex. I'll be honest, I've had 3 partners over the past 6 months, and that may be a lot or a little to you, but for me, that's not many based on my past experience. And the reason that I've been having less sex is due to the emotional clarity piece. Alcohol was clouding my judgment and leading to essentially having sex with women that I wouldn't have had sex with if I was sober. And I'm not talking about physically necessarily. I'm talking about Do I want that sort of interaction or energy exchange with that specific individual? It's intimate shit, right? I think that everyone can relate to this on some level. So what this all really comes down to, and what any choice boils down to, brass tacks for that matter, is cost-benefit ratio. And that applies to whether you want to order pizza for dinner tonight or make your own meal, all the way to whether you choose to stay in a relationship or not. We are cost-benefit machines. And man, the brain can calculate quick. Now, I'm not saying that the calculation is logical or accurate necessarily, but it is a calculation nonetheless. Do I go for a walk or not? Thoughts ensue. Well, I don't really feel like it, but it always feels better to move. But I'm sort of tired, but getting outside tends to give me more energy, but it's wet and it's raining. This calculation or pros and cons list all happens really quickly. This is how we make decisions in our lives. And at that point, when I decided that I was going to go 30 days without alcohol, the cost benefit or the cost and potential benefit ratio flipped. I acknowledged that what I was doing was no longer working for me, and I explored a different option. It's that simple on a macro level. And so if you don't understand why you're doing something, yet you continue to do it, it's because you're not seeing or acknowledging that the pros are outweighing the cons on some level. Because if they weren't, you wouldn't do it. Of course, all of the intricate whys underneath of our choices can be complex because humans are complex, but at the end of the day, it's a situation of to do or not to do. That is the question. Having said that, it is a process. You may not be ready. This podcast might resonate more with you 2 years from now, and you may choose something different then. There's no need to beat yourself up over stuff like this. It's your life, and the beautiful thing about that is that you get to do whatever you want with it. No judgment, just choices with outcomes attached to them. It's identical to food decisions. It's like, what do you want more? And I often see folks want things that they just don't want. For example, if someone is saying in one breath that they want to lose weight and get healthier, but aren't taking action steps to do so, they actually want to lose weight and get healthier, because if they truly wanted it, they'd be walking the walk. And again, no judgment, but the truth shall set you free, right? Being honest with yourself is so fucking empowering and refreshing. For example, I absolutely love it when my clients are like, I'm gonna have a glass of wine every day because I acknowledge the trade-offs that I'm making and it's worth it to me. It adds to my life. Versus someone being like, I need to stop drinking so much, and then they have a beer every night. The ownership and honesty piece is just super sexy. As we start to wrap up here, I remember years ago hearing a woman named Brene Brown say that sobriety was a superpower. And I didn't get it at the time, which makes sense because I hadn't technically been sober since I was like 12 years old. But I definitely do now. It is honestly life-changing. But it's one of those things where you don't know what you don't know until you give it a go. If you're interested in applying for one-on-one nutritional coaching and or workout design with me, you can click the link in the description below or head on over to n1fitness.com/coaching. On Instagram, I'm at N1Fitness. On TikTok, I'm at the N1Fitness. And on YouTube, I'm at Marcus Sidhu. The videos are rolling out on YouTube. Thank you so much if you've taken a second to review the podcast on your favorite platform. I genuinely appreciate you. That's how we reach more folks with this stuff. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. Thanks for tuning in. I hope that you found this useful, insightful, etc. And I will catch you on the next one. See ya.